conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised.
Millions of people just living out their lives, oblivious. Choice is an illusion created between those with power and those without.
I drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
Thank you, John Larson. I receive your kind words on behalf of all of our courageous members of the House of Representatives who want the best for the American people. And what we can do that is best for them in the next 24 hours is to pass affordable, accessible health care for all Americans. The best for all Americans is to have 32 million more people to have health insurance in our country. The best for...
Piece of stinking filth.
Shh, say it again, Shali. This is AJ of the InfoWars. Listen to the Shaliak. This is Alex Jones of InfoWars. Listen to Shaliak on the Cold Reality News and Report.
This is the coolest thing I have ever seen.
Well, hello there. This week on Cold Reality Radio. Four Americans face acid attack in France. Trouble in St. Louis. Second night of violence. Group surrounds mayor's house. Windows broken. Paint thrown. Bricks are thrown. And rocks at police officers. U2 and Ed Sheeran cancel concerts. The party's over. Republicans and Democrats are both finished. One party, one religion, one currency. The left warns Pelosi and Schumer. Trump labels North Korean leader the Rocket Man. Kim Jong-un threatens to turn USA into a sea of flames. President preps for first UN speech. Super Bowl of security for that event. Emergency crews raced to chemical incident in London. Vomiting residents rushed to the hospital. Threat level critical. Troops on streets. Bomber picked up by authorities 2 weeks ago. Second suspect arrested. That and more on today's edition of Cold Reality Radio here on the UCY.TV Broadcasting Network. All right. Welcome to the program today. Called Reality Radio here on UCY. And you always mix a little bit of the cold reality with the warm. You see why. 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 Sunday morning, September 17th. You see why on September 17th. You see why. I see why. I see why. And you see why. You see why. You see why. Sunday morning, you see why. 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 You see. You see why. You see why. You see why. Sunday morning, cold reality, radio. You see why. They'll see why one day. We see why today. Cold reality. You see why. You see why. I don't know if you heard the news, but Clint Richardson has a show, a new show on UCY. He's got a new show on UCY. It might start today at 5. Clint is back on Sunday afternoon. Clint is back on Sunday afternoon. Clint Richardson is back on UCY. It's a live show. It's a live show at UCY at 5 Eastern Time. Clint is back. Clint is back. His new home on UCY.TV. Clint is back. Clint is back on UCY. On UCY. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. It's been a while. Guess who's back on UCY? Clint Richardson is back on UCY, doing live his own show on UCY's Sunday at 5. UCY. Join us in celebration for the new show on UCY. I'm going to save the name because I may have forgotten it. Forgive me. It has red pill in the name. Please forgive me. For I am a beast called a human. Human. Not man. Human. Some form of man. Some form of man. Not man, but human. Hey, you man. Straw man. Story.info. Go to strawmanstory.info. Straw man. The true story of your artificial self. Straw man. It's not on the Barnes and Noble shelves. Straw man. It is not even a book. It is something different. It has not been published. It is not on Amazon. It's not on Amazon. Straw man. The true story of your artificial person. How you are sold to the state at birth. At birth. At birth. You are property of the USA Corporation. It is not a country. It is a corporation. The United States of Death. Spreading deathmocracy. Spreading deathmocracy. East and West. Spreading deathmocracy. Deathmocracy. Welcome to Cold Reality. Welcome to Cold Reality. reality. The whole world, thumb-sucking masses, the thumb-sucking masses in the USA holes, USA holes, USA holes, USA holes. Don't be a USA hole, don't be a USA hole. Don't be a thumb sucker in the USA, because if you are, you'll fall for the bullshit every day. Don't be a USA hole. Don't be a USA hole. Don't be a USA hole. You USA hole. Welcome. That is right. That is true. You heard it here on Cold Reality Radio. Clint has a live show. I don't know whether starting this Sunday or next Sunday or some Sunday soon. Currently, his archive plays from 5 to 7 Eastern Time. His Corporation Nation archive. And I imagine that will continue at some point. You can always find all of those old shows on, what is that? The Corporation Nation Radio Archives.wordpress.com. You can go to strawmanstory.info. It's a reality blogger with 1G at wordpress.com. You can go over there and you can find all the updates. And there's links to the radio archives there. You can see his documentaries about vaccination, the truth about vaccination. On YouTube, you can see his Corporation Nation documentary on YouTube. And so I'm just kind of really excited to see that at least once a week, Clint's going to get back on and he's going to move in a radio live direction. I know that he sits in for me and he brings on people like Patrick Jordan and others that have contributed to his journey, his path that led to his work, his continuing work, The Straw Man, the true story of your artificial person. And look for more. Of course, it's free over there at strawmanstory.info. You can get the PDF. You can download it. You can put it on your electronic e-reader. That's basically being set up to. They won't have to burn any books. They'll just delete every bit of history. Just like the other night watching the book of Eli. with Denzel Washington, where after this nuclear war, people only heard of books. They had no idea what a book was, you know? So when he was hiding the book from Mila Kunis, and she was like, "That's a book. Oh my God, that's a book. Can I see it?" And he's like, "No. I don't need no cracker girl touching the Bible." But that was quite a movie, and of course his nemesis in it was the guy who played Dracula, Gary something, I want to say. He wanted that book because he knew how powerful it was that he could control people. See, and that's where the gray area between the anger that people have for, you know, not so much ancient knowledge, as Clint pointed out, but just ongoing knowledge. It's not, and just for, you know, it's not an ancient, well, obviously it's here from there, but as we go forward, we find out from Clint's research, from Daniel, his basically like once a week guest for 3 years or 200 or 300 archives podcast, we find out that it is a timeless piece of work. And some people are like, "Oh yeah, it's a piece of work. All right, it's a piece of work." But if it's understood and it's interpreted the right way, which the mongrels, unfortunately, it's like, I guess, to a dog that walks up, if there's not like, you know, a hot dog or something on top of it, they don't even know what it is. All they know is that this hot dog is being propped up by something. And that's basically the way that most people look at it, in terms of just totally rejecting it and or just letting someone else read it to them, you know. And that's what ultimately what the nemesis in the Book of Eli was going to do, because he wasn't a good guy, but he knew the power of it. He was old enough to know the power of the Bible. So that is awesome. Let's check out a couple things here. Let's go over to the UCY.TV platform. And see what it sounds like over there. Of the Bible. So that is awesome. Let's check out a couple things here. Let's go over to, all right. So I'm going to go over here and let's take a look at the shows, find out. I know it's Red Pill Education, I want to say. Forgive me. Forgive me. God, we've got so much incredible programming on UCY. Let me tell you about it. The Anti-Media. Anti-Media. I've listened to that show a few times. Those guys are pretty awesome. Brandon Turbeville's Truth on the Tracks. I tell you, this guy, his breakdown, his detailed breakdown and understanding of what's going on out there, he's good. The Barbarian Lounge, we got the Age of Fishing. Of course, our own program director, Jules, Before the First Cup. We got Rock the Boat coming up with Ron Stevens after me, and a number of times during the week. He's doing shows. He's doing shows like Broadway. This guy, Voice of Rebellion Radio, got On the Brink, Jeff Wefferson, Anarchopreneur, Nathan Frazier. We've got the ongoing Bill. What's that? The Hour of the Time, Mr. Bill. May Brussels Archives, her breakdown of what was going on back in the 70s and the 80s. Behind the scenes, you got Corbett Report. I'm going to play 9/11 in 5 minutes. I didn't even cover anything. The hurricane last week really kind of, threw things into a or derailed me. It doesn't take much to do that, Doesn't take much to derail me. So Jay's analysis, there it is. Corporation Nation Archives, Geoengineering Watch with Dane Wigington. We've got Character Matters with Dr. George Simon, Behind the Woodshed with Hal, Sovereign Tech, talking about technology, and of course, I'll save me for last. Spam. That's the name of the show, Spam. And you got Truther Talk, Grammarica. We've got Coalition to Govern America, or Control. We've got Shali Effect. We've got Primer Time. We've got the archives of Liam Sheff, who's no longer with us. I was blown away to hear of his untimely demise. Anti-Tyranny News Radio, Nuclear Hot Seat, Greek News on Demand, Our Interesting Times, Cutting Through the Matrix, and of course Cold Reality Radio with the Shali Lama. Okay, so it's not up here yet, but it is on the way. It is on the way. So stay posted for Clint's new weekly show coming up very, very soon. Most likely in that 5 o'clock time slot. All right. All right, so the situation with it's NOCO, by the way, now. It's all broken down into TARD language. North Korea's NOCO. So whenever you see NOCO, it's North Korea. And so that situation continues to fester and boil. Continues to fester, and I truly believe that it's being managed, it's being manipulated from all sides. There was even information saying that there was, ongoing conversations with North Korea behind the scenes. So. We've got very, very powerful people that have been involved with social and societal engineering for years, for many, many years. And, I'm no history buff, but I understand manipulation. I understand very, very powerful people wanting wars to profit greatly from, and then also needing wars to be able to societally engineer, to societally engineer the masses into a corner. Watching a little bit of the Irish Revolution in was Easter's Day in 19 1916, which around the same time the Russian Revolution was going on, and basically World War II was going on. Okay, so during the conversations that people were having about it, you could hear some of them allude to the manipulation, the outside manipulations, and the things that they didn't really elaborate on completely, but they did point out a couple things, and they said a few things that made those that are paying attention, understand that there was a hidden hand of manipulation that was happening. And of course the British were involved, and they were in there probably taxing the shit out of them. I mean, they're closer, but when the so-called 1776 here in America, we were being taxed incredibly. And the Civil War was Abraham Lincoln taxing the shit out of everyone and not letting up, working with the Union, meaning the bankers. Yet this guy gets held up. He has the Lincoln Monument, and he has all these things. He actually, large scale, he was a white separatist, and he did not want to live with black people. He wanted them to go back to, he wanted them back in Africa. A lot of people argue as to whether the Civil War was about slavery or not. But largely, just like we do today with identity politics, you can see everybody, all the different groups, all the 20 different genders that we have today, and everybody being suppressed to a large extent. Got to get everybody, in on the collapse, the societal, the social end of the and the instigators, not so much collaborators, but we know that a lot of these people out there from Charlottesville and Berkeley and a lot of these other sites of violence, and most likely there's groups out in St. Louis that are doing the same thing, where they're getting paid $25 an hour and they're being shipped in to, to do what they're doing. The girl gets killed, the 32-year-old woman gets killed in Charlottesville, and then you find out the guy taking the picture worked from the State Department. The guy with the video camera behind it was working for the State Department. So there's so many things going on. And of course we have over in the UK, in France, we have ongoing terror attacks, and ultimately, I'm thinking maybe less than 1% of what goes on over there is most likely some of these. I know that a lot of these people are molesting people and doing that, and that's pretty fucked up in and of itself. But you have that hidden hand in there that are manipulating these people, that are migrants that basically have nothing. All right, they're being manipulated into doing horrible things. Now, if they're smart, they come over here and then they just kind of chill out, and they don't, take candy from strangers. But I believe that when these big the stabbings and the bridge attack and the different terror attacks in France and stuff, these are people that are assets. These people are assets, and they are working towards changing things around in a huge way. And I think that's what they're going for. Days, I would imagine days, maybe weeks prior to this police officer getting off of these charges against him. I mean, that's all it really will take. Just any kind of situation where there's a police officer or somebody that does something, or there's a confrontation that leads to the death of someone. Just mark the date when the verdict's going to come down, and you have your riot, and then of course you have your Shakespearean actors and actresses that are out there, and a lot of these people, they are scumbags, and I really do truly believe that if they are being paid to do this and they really don't have a stake in it, largely, that if they got killed, no big deal. But the media would spin it. The media would absolutely spin it. And how do we find out who these people are that are being paid to protest? We know that we have a economic ingredient to the whole thing. These people, they don't have opportunities. They can't find jobs, if you will. I mean, or anything that's going to support them. So if somebody's going to pay them 20 or 25, bucks an hour to go out and take a shit on some city, believe they're going to go ahead and do it. So it's unfortunately it's if you're going to make a cake, you're going to need ingredients, and especially if that cake is just made up of all kinds of nasty things, and then you serve the cake, and everybody's like, "What's that? What's that I taste in there?" And I'm like, "Death." I put a cup of death in there, and now you're eating it. So, group surrounds mayor's house. Broken windows, bricks are being thrown at officers. Concerts being canceled, and in the blacklisted news, soldiers drafted in and extra armed police on the streets. Now that the terror threat level was raised to critical. Former Facebook executive says Google, Facebook are surveillance states. Trump's been a critic of Amazon, tweeting his disdain for coverage from the Washington Post, which is a personal holding of Amazon CEO Bezos. But Palihapitiya said, who's this person? But Palihapitiya says he thinks that Facebook and Google. Okay, so this is the maybe they should put his name in the the header so that this is who they're talking about. Said he thinks that Facebook and Google face more regulatory risk given the many retailers that compete with Amazon. Not another Charlottesville. Richmond police enforce weapons ban ahead of Confederate rally. That's right. Probably about an hour from Charlottesville, there was a group. I want to say that this happened over this weekend here. This one. that we're in. From Zero Hedge. With the memory of Charlottesville still fresh in everyone's mind, Richmond police have announced that they are planning to impose strict security measures, including a temporary weapons ban during a celebration of Confederate heritage set to take place on Saturday near a famous statue of Robert E. Lee on Monument Avenue. See, we're so fucking totally deceived. Whereas you'll have Robert E. Lee, who was largely, I mean, the way it seems, this guy's got his statues. If you're a complete fucking jerk-off asshole and history lied about you, then you have a Lincoln monument. Because Civil War didn't have to happen. Abraham Lincoln was as I said, a white separatist. He did not want to even be around black people. But yet history and all of the bullshit that we heard over the years is that he freed the slaves. I mean, that is an absolute fucking broad painted picture there. But it was 180 degrees in the opposite direction. They only brought slavery into it because the identity politics would mask, confuse, and litter the history books. And of course, we know who basically writes all the history books, those that want to deceive people about the past. But yet there's Lincoln's birthday, and it's the minutia of these fucking presidents, these bloodline fucking traitors, basically. The only reason that Alex Jones is constantly blowing George Washington is probably because he's related to him. Like so many others. McCain, Obama, the Bush family. So, whatever it is, if somebody says, well, everybody knows that, it's not the truth. And that's what we find ourselves doing in this wasteland, this shit-stained fucking wasteland of fucking morons, where they sit there and say, everybody knows that Lincoln freed the slaves. Fuck you. But yet, what do people do? They go down there and they're kicking Robert E. Lee statues over, when it turns out that he was more akin to, hating slavery. And I mean, didn't fucking Washington have slaves when he died after he was done with his presidency? That solidified the rule of the British European bloodlines in their new corporation, or the earlier embryonic stages of the United States corporation. And then all of his relatives, all of his cousins, from that point forward, would become presidents. America its story is a lie. It's bullshit. It gets perpetuated and proliferated by these weaponized educational facilities, these prisons. And then as early as, and I played a video, audio dissertation of As early as the 1850s, they were fucking with schools. At one point, there were any number of different people. Like they would have a class in whatever communities that they were in, and they would be like, "Yeah, everybody, if you want to come and learn, especially the children, maybe even the adults, with learning disabilities." Which I'm sure were not that in abundance back then. They were able to go and get educated in 5-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds. They could all sit there and learn equally. Now, I'm sure that there was a little bit of shortcuts and detours when it came to certain people. But overall, that was the early initiative that had taken place. But then, of course, the system came in and decided that they were going to put people into different groups. They were going to put people in, obviously, first into different age groups. And then when the Rockefellers bought up the encyclopedias and bought up and obviously being the head of the National Education Association, where it was stated that I want a nation of workers, not thinkers, so that they could build America. We have these stories that are on History Channel about the Rockefellers and how great they were and all this stuff. And yeah, with their dirty fucking money, they had the commoners build an oasis with bridges and roads and many, many different things. Many people lost their lives building a lot of these bridges. And architecture. But the Rockefellers will take all the credit for it, I'm sure, as they often do. Their creation. So the weapons ban in Richmond. Hopefully, I didn't see any major headlines or anything there. Let's see. They're cordoning off the area and making it a specific assembly area where you can't bring certain items in. Councilwoman Kim Gray told the Fan District Association Board on Tuesday they'll be listing items you can't bring into that area, and weapons will be at the top of the list. So I didn't hear anything negative. So I guess that's a good thing. I wanted to play this just in case people are still living in a fucking fantasy land. Here we go. Let's listen to this, and then I'll be right back with you.
On the morning of September 11th, 2001, 19 men armed with box cutters, directed by a man on dialysis in a cave fortress halfway around the world using a satellite phone and a laptop, directed the most sophisticated penetration of the most heavily defended airspace in the world. overpowering the passengers and the military combat-trained pilots on 4 commercial aircraft before flying those planes wildly off course for over an hour without being molested by a single fighter interceptor. These 19 hijackers, devout religious fundamentalists who like to drink alcohol, snort cocaine, and live with pink-haired strippers, managed to knock down 3 buildings with 2 planes in New York, while in Washington, a pilot who couldn't handle a single-engine Cessna was able to fly a 757 in an 8,000-foot descending 270-degree corkscrew turn to come exactly level with the ground, hitting the Pentagon in the Budget Analyst Office where DoD staffers were working on the mystery of the $2.3 trillion that Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld had announced missing from the Pentagon's coffers in a press conference the day before, on September 10th, 2001. Luckily, the news anchors knew who did it within minutes.
Osama bin Laden.
The pundits knew within hours.
Osama bin Laden.
The administration knew within the day.
Terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbored them.
And the evidence literally fell into the FBI's lap.
That a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
But for some reason, a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists demanded an investigation into the greatest attack on American soil in history. That investigation was delayed, underfunded, set up to fail, a conflict of interest, and a cover-up from start to finish. It was based on testimony extracted through torture, the records of which were destroyed. It failed to mention the existence of WTC-7, Able Danger, P-TECH, Sibel Edmonds, OBL and the CIA, and the drills of hijacked aircraft being flown into buildings that were being simulated at the precise same time that those events were actually happening. It was lied to by the Pentagon, the CIA, the Bush administration, and as for Bush and Cheney, well, no one knows what they told it because they testified in secret, off the record, not under oath, and behind closed doors. It didn't bother to look at who funded the attacks because that question is ultimately of little practical significance. Still, the 9/11 Commission did brilliantly answering all of the questions the public had, except most of the victims' family members' questions, and pinned blame on all the people responsible, although no one so much as lost their job, determining the attacks were
failure of imagination.
Because
nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
Except the Pentagon, FEMA, NORAD, and the NRO. The DIA destroyed 2.5 terabytes of data on Able Danger, but that's okay because it probably wasn't important. The SEC destroyed their records on the investigation into the insider trading before the attacks, but that's okay because destroying the records of the largest investigation in SEC history is just part of routine record keeping. NIST has classified the data that they used for their model of WTC-7's collapse, but that's okay because knowing how they made their model of the collapse would jeopardize public safety. The FBI has argued that all material related to their investigation of 9/11 should be kept secret from the public, but that's okay because the FBI probably has nothing to hide. This man never existed, nor is anything he had to say worthy of your attention, and if you say otherwise, you are a paranoid conspiracy theorist and deserve to be shunned by all of humanity. Likewise him, and her. And her, and her, and him. Osama bin Laden lived in a cave fortress in the hills of Afghanistan, but somehow got away. Then he was hiding out in Tora Bora, but somehow got away. Then he lived in Abbottabad for years, taunting the most comprehensive intelligence dragnet employing the most sophisticated technology in the history of the world for a decade, releasing video after video with complete impunity and getting younger and younger as he did so, before finally being found in a daring SEAL team raid which wasn't recorded on video, in which he didn't resist or use his wife as a human shield, and in which these crack special forces operatives panicked and killed this unarmed man, supposedly the best source of intelligence about those dastardly terrorists on the entire planet. Then they dumped his body in the ocean before telling anyone about it. Then a couple dozen of that team's members died in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan. This is the story of 9/11, brought to you by the media which told you the hard truths about...
His head could be seen to move violently forward.
And...
They took the babies out of the incubators.
And...
Mobile production facilities.
And...
The rescue of Jessica Lynch.
If you have any questions about this story, you are a batshit, paranoid, tinfoil, dog-abusing baby hater and will be reviled by everyone. If you love your country and or freedom, happiness, rainbows, rock and roll, puppy dogs, apple pie, and your grandma, you will never ever express doubts about any part of this story to anyone. Ever. This has been a public service announcement by the Friends of the FBI, CIA, NSA, DIA, SEC, MSM, White House, NIST, and the 9/11 Commission. Because ignorance is strength.
It certainly is. Ignorance is strength. So yeah, it's just fascinating how they just the absolute ridiculousness of all of these excuses that they made. and how Cheney and Bush testified not under oath, behind closed doors, just absolutely nothing. And then Bush saying, nobody, not even the previous administration would think that they would have flown jets into buildings. And then like FEMA, NORAD, the Pentagon, they were all wargaming for it. And they were doing drills on the very day that they were wargaming for planes being flown into buildings, if you can believe the ridiculousness of that anyone would believe any of this. And so, as I said, I missed it last week. It was on a Monday, and of course, there was one person that reached out to me during the day and sent me something, and so I sent him the 9/11 in 5 minutes, and we had a 5 to 10 minute conversation talking about what total utter bullshit the official story, the government story of 9/11 and the insurance fraud that it was, and how up until that point, no buildings had ever been brought down by planes flying into them because of fire, whatever. And when you see people, when I've argued with people in the past about this, how they sit there and they start taking all of these talking points that they heard on TV and they start vomiting them out at you like they're a fucking NIST employee or they're one of these agencies that are explaining it to people like they know what the fuck they're talking about. It's just an absolute utter shame. And well, shame's going to be brought on everyone because of all these people that think that they know because they watched a program on the news, on the state-controlled news, the Zio News, that they would believe this bullshit, that they would believe the media after all these years and all the lies, the weapons of mass destruction that led to what happened in Iraq. And now it's still, it's really just a playground for these psychopaths to murder children, starve them to death through sanctions, drop depleted uranium and other incredibly dangerous materials on these children and birth defects and everything. And I mean, this is what we support. This is what we're number one. We're number one. Doesn't that make you feel good? We're number one. Hey, we're number one over there. We're number one. Yay, America. Spreading the deathmocracy all over the place. It's great. Hey, you over there. We're number one. Hey there. So much information, so much evidence. So much. Let's see here. And then, of course, then they have their videos that they put out there. Did 3,000 people really die on 9/11? So they just carpet bomb this fake reality with stories that are going to pull people in, and there's just no point in even entertaining that video, because the bottom line here is that how many thousands of people have died as a result of 9/11? That is really, truly the way that people they just get carpet bombed with information, disinformation, very little real, truthful information, but they just are carpet bombed with shit, along with the other worthless shit that they already participate in. And I mean, there is absolutely no way that Trump became the president without this being a complete and total operation to get somebody like him in there and go up against Medusa and then, come out on top. And the wars continue, and the subservience to the settlers and murderers and the real true criminals are what Trump likes to participate in. That subservience. And there's no way that anybody thinks that he'd be any different than Obama, other than some of the things that he's done to try to reverse what Obama did, which there's nothing wrong with that. But it's mostly bullshit. I mean, there's a lot of things that have happened. There's a lot of things that have been done. Has the health care been? Nope. That's what people voted him in to get done. Health care didn't happen. I'm not saying that he's failed at everything, but it's all window dressing. It's all just a manipulation. And in his attempt to protect America's southern borders, he's going to build a wall and he's going to do this. All these things that he said that he didn't have to say and still could have accomplished if he wanted to. All he had to do was say, everybody in the past, all this talk about immigration, illegal immigration, a border wall that couldn't keep a fucking ant out. I guess that was a bad analogy. He could have just said, I'm really going to make this one of my big focal points. But no, everything that he's done largely is to make people really, really fucking hate and despise him. Now, they were going to do that anyway, but then there's, throwing salt in a wound. America's already The Walking Dead. Already The Walking Dead. The battery that keeps this, or one of the power sources that keeps, like, I don't know if you ever watched that Elf movie with Will Ferrell, and at the end, Santa's sleigh crashes, and then he helps him, get the nuclear turbo booster or something on the sleigh, but then he can't take off because there's not enough Christmas spirit. People don't believe in Santa Claus anymore, right? So they all start singing, Santa Claus is coming to town. And because they believe and they start singing, that fucking revs up Santa's sleigh. Well, that's the same shit that fucking happens in America. The more that you believe in it, the more it strengthens and becomes the beast that it is. So if you believe in Trump, if you believe in the Clintons, if you believe that Hillary was going to be the best, the first woman president, and she was going to be even better than Obama, and all these other different, fantasy fucking dreams that these liberal, uneducated, or actually you could. I want to say that if you're heavily educated in the American corporation through their indoctrination camps, then you are the most mentally ill. And we see that. We see that with a lot of these what do they call them? I'm forgetting the word. But the belief in the system gives it power and raises it from the dead. And the left and the right is just a divide and conquer strategy. Should not even be participated in. And they manufacture consent. And when we give it consent, we make it real. It's like when you die in the Matrix, you die for real because your mind makes it real. Even though you're just sitting back with a fucking wire stuck in the back of your head, you're still dead when you die in the Matrix because your mind makes it real. And most of the people in America are already fucking dead. They're already dead. Just a walking fucking dead. Believing something that is not true. Believing many, many things that are absolute lies and manipulation. To manufacture consent, which most people give without even questioning. They give their consent without even questioning. George Carlin said, if you can tell one person something, tell them to question authority, to question everything. And he had his liberal thing too, where he would come out there and he would immediately start bashing, white Republican bankers. But he was on that track. But yet at the same time, he really should have spoken out about the left and the liberals. But those were the people that he kind of catered to when he was coming up through his career. Just like Bill Maher caters to, if it wasn't for this retarded fucking class of people that are supposed to be educated, Bill Maher would not have a fucking audience. if it wasn't for the millennials. And then the show wasn't bad. The Daily Show was not. There was a lot of real funny stuff in there without them getting too political. There was a lot of funny stuff, and we knew that it was fake news. That it was just a funny fake, And Stewart was funny, and Colbert was funny, and Carell, Lewis Black, all these guys that were on there, even the Samantha Bee. And now all they do is sit there and fucking hate, and then thus further dividing people, just further dividing the country. While they sit there collecting their large salaries, B and Colbert now replacing David Letterman. I can't even watch him anymore. And not because he hates Donald Trump. It's because he is in no way what he was when he was on on that show, on the Colbert Report. He is nothing like that. He is not even funny anymore. Being on Comedy Central is one thing. And then you move to one of these fucking demonic fucking 3, 6, 10, NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, and you become unwatchable if you're a comedian. I mean, there's any number of people that I'd would rather see on there. I thought that on the Late Late Show that Craig Ferguson was probably one of the funniest, most interesting people when it came to his show and him interviewing people and just being a total silly idiot. That was entertaining. I think Conan O'Brien is probably one of the funniest guys. He'll take a shot at he's on TBS, so he'll take a shot at Trump. But it's not anything vindictive or anything like Stephen Colbert has done. He'll make jokes. He made jokes about Obama. He made jokes about a lot of people. And I think that's what I like the most about Conan is that he's not gonna get involved in that shit. Like he might ask somebody, well, what do you think about Donald Trump? And they'll goof on it for a second, but it's not gonna be their whole fucking thing. It's not gonna be their whole agenda. Stephen Colbert is a dud. He's not doing anything for what he calls a career. He's just not. He's not funny anymore. He's not the Colbert Report. He's just an absolute fool. He's an absolute idiot and a fool. And not because he hates Trump. He has nothing else. He has nothing else. Nothing else. Plus, they just lie to the American people. They think that Donald Trump is the worst thing that's ever happened to America. How about America being the worst thing that ever happened to America? But what do? They cater to their corporate sponsors who would be nothing without the main corporation, America, the United States corporation, and of course the banks, the corporation banks. So they never really go after that, but they go after Trump. And a lot of people are saying, well, Trump is he's a billionaire, he's this, he's that. Well, what are these presidents? What are these politicians? They're parasites. They do nothing. They do nothing for anyone. They pretend. And then when there's a I guarantee you that Ted Cruz and a lot of these other guys and politicians that are getting involved because Houston is the focal point and Southern Texas is the focal point. They're doing this to not so much for the commoners, but for the landowners, the real true landowners that fucking, take taxes from, the property that they own tax-free. Pure title. That's who Ted Cruz and the governor Abbott and those other guys work for. The elite bloodline family members that own pure title, have pure title over all that land in every state. But it looks good too, And then there's guys like who's the defensive back from the Houston Texans. He's raised something like $50 million, which is good. And I hope none of that fucking goes to the Red Cross. Ugh. Yeah. So any updates going on out there? Nope. Still 4 Americans face acid attack. Didn't even cover that. Women arrested after spraying 4 American tourists with acid at a Marseille train station, causing burns to their faces and legs. I think if they just started killing people for doing these awful things, just imagine, spraying somebody's face with acid and leaving them completely facially deformed for the rest of their lives. Those people should be killed. I mean, there shouldn't be any kind of there shouldn't be any kind of case or time or taxpayers, But we know that what the legal system does. The legal system is a moneymaker, moving money from the left pocket to the right, from the right pocket to the left, for the drug companies and all these others to make it look like justice has been served when it was really a shit fucking sandwich that was served. These people that do these things, that spray fucking people with acid and all that, if this was a legitimate situation and this is a true story, these people should be fucking killed. Anybody who has the mentality that they're going to go up and spray somebody in the fucking face with acid, they should be fucking killed. The minute that somebody said, yeah, I saw him do it, you get enough people saying, I saw that person do that. Death. A 41-year-old attacker used a cleaning substance containing hydrochloric acid. There you go. We have our fucking cleaning supplies that we don't even need all these fucking chemicals, but they're here to fucking wreck us. They're here to destroy our environment, to the benzene cleaners and all this other shit. Anthony Weiner blames girl he sexted for wanting to affect the election. Another fucking vile pile of shit. Weiner. Afghanistan. United States resolved to repeat failures. The United States military and political leadership is so devoid of learning capability that it does not fight multi-year-long wars. Instead, it fights one disconnected campaign after the other on the very same battlefield. Each of these campaigns will repeat the mistakes that the previous ones made and will have the same outcome. Thus, we have seen several increases in troop numbers in Afghanistan. See, exactly. It's what I've always said, and I'm not that fucking smart. that they do the same thing and they create the same destabilization, blame it on something else so that they can maintain troops and then they can fucking stay there. They should just come out and say, we're staying here. If you don't like it, we're going to fucking kill you. Because that's what reality is. We've taken over your fucking country. That's it. We're here and we're going to say the wrong word and we're going to bludgeon you. That's the bottom line. This is Moon of Alabama. Thus, we have seen several increases in troop numbers in Afghanistan. Each time such a surge happened under Bush, under Obama, and now Trump, the result was an increase in Taliban activity and success. We have seen the use of local militia forces fail under Obama when these were called Afghan local police. And then, of course, some of our American military have been killed by these Afghans that don't want them there, that just do not want them there. And then it says the 20,000 men strong Afghan local police was supposedly trained to hold land against the Taliban. But the local police groups turned out to be local gangs who, thanks to their official status, could rob, rape, well, we got to rap, but rap, and kill people without fear of retaliation. See, that's what you would expect. Put the gangs in, have them kill each other, and then say that the police, that the people that they're training to protect themselves failed us. The suppressed population then turned to the Taliban for relief. And the Taliban is most likely basically a bullshit organization that has Western contacts and ties that keep that thing going. So again, the police are not people, not good people that are in Afghanistan wanting to protect themselves and their families and destabilize the region from the Taliban. They're gangs who are let run roughshod, and they rape and kill and steal and do all kinds of other horrific things to the other Afghani people. Makes sense. Makes total fucking sense. The idea to create such a local force was so bad that it is time to repeat it. Right? It worked so good by failing that it is the blueprint from this point forward. The American military has turned to the idea of a local militia force as a potential model for how to maintain the Afghan government's waning control without too high a cost in difficult parts of Afghanistan at a time when the Taliban are resurgent. The size of the new force is yet to be finalized, but it could number more than 20,000, according to a senior Afghan official. While the senior Afghan official insisted that only the conceptual framework of the force has been agreed to, and the details were still being sorted out, several Western officials said that preparations were already underway to pilot the new force in southern districts of the Nagar province. We can predict with confidence that a year from now, those very same districts of Nagar province will again staunchly support the Taliban. In 2001, the CIA and the U.S. Special Forces kicking out the Taliban with the support of Northern Alliance war criminals. Our aerial bombing based on partisan information continued for years. After their defeats, the Taliban had given up on ruling the country. They offered to dissolve in exchange for amnesty and an end to the war, but the bombing, often on one direction of some of the local wannabe strongmen, continued. Many people not involved with the Taliban or any resistance were killed and maimed. Their communities called out for help. The Taliban revived and came back to fight the invaders. For a while, the indiscriminate, unaccountable bombing seemed to calm down, but the insurgency, once revived, continued. Time then to repeat and expand the scheme, if only under a different logo and in more countries. I mean, there's documentaries about the Philippines where ISIS, they're fighting ISIS in the Philippines. I mean, this is one of the biggest fucking deceptions that, I mean, there's of so many. This has got to be one of the biggest ones. And of course, it's down the road. It's setting up for more destabilization, more terror attacks in America. It's just going to be unlivable if we keep letting these people do the same thing, use the same strategy. It's going to be unlivable. Susan Rice admits the Trump team was placed under surveillance. Pentagon busted working with organized crime to funnel billions in weapons to terrorists after they said that they were going to stop. All right. From Jay Sermopoulos. This is over Blacklisted News. A damning new report by the Balkan Investigative Report Network and the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project published this week exposing the Pentagon's falsifying of documents likely to hide the use of a shady network of private arms dealers intimately connected to Eastern European organized crime groups to transfer some $2.2 billion worth of mostly old Soviet weaponry to al-Qaeda affiliates in Syria. The extensive investigation by Byrne and OCCRP exposed a massive U.S. weapons trafficking rat line that originates in the Balkans and Caucasus regions and ends in Iraq and Syria. The group published internal U.S. defense procurement documents that conclusively prove that billions of dollars worth of weapons have been trafficked. FP further reports that the Pentagon program appears to be turbocharging a shadowy world of Eastern European arms dealers, and adds further that the Pentagon is reportedly removing documentary evidence about just who will ultimately be using the weapons, potentially weakening one of the bulwarks of the international protocols against illicit arms dealing. The fact that the Pentagon is willing to use European organized crime groups to procure weapons to ship to al-Qaeda terrorists in an ongoing regime change operation, which is sold to the American public as a humanitarian endeavor, should wake every American up to the farce that is spreading deathmocracy. That's my new word. That's a new word. I just made that up. And, of course, high-ranking CIA agents blows the whistle on deep state and shadow government. Zero Hedge, a CIA whistleblower, Kevin Shipp, has emerged from the wolf's den to expose the deep state and the shadow government, which he calls two entirely separate entities. The shadow government controls the deep state and manipulates our elected government behind the scenes. Shipp warned in a recent talk at geoengineeringwatch.org conference. That's our own Dane Wigington there. Shipp had a series of slides explaining how the deep state and shadow government functions, as well as the horrific crimes they are committing against U.S. citizens. Some of the revelations the former CIA anti-terrorist counterintelligence officer revealed included that Google Earth was set up through the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and In-Q-Tel. Indeed, he is correct. The CIA and NGA owned the company Google acquired, Keyhole Incorporated, paying an undisclosed sum for the company to turn its tech into what we know now as Google Earth. Another curious investor in Keyhole Incorporation was none other than the venture capital firm Q-Tel, run by the CIA, according to a press release at the time. Shipp also disclosed that an agency known as the Joint Special Ops Command is the president's secret army, which he can use for secret assassinations, overturning governments, and things the American people don't know about. Let's see here.
A shadowy government with its own Air Force, its own Navy, its own fundraising mechanism, and the ability to pursue its own ideas of the national interest, free from all checks and balances, and free from the law itself.
Senator Daniel Inouye on the shadow government. You can find that over at Blacklisted News. High-ranking CIA agent blows whistle on the deep state. Let's see if we can. I hope this is. No, this is like an hour. I'm gonna check that out myself, but let me. The fuck.
Hey guys, I'm
I don't care.
Carly Kloss, and I just created my own website.
Stop talking. Stop fucking talking, Carly. Nobody fucking cares about your website. Nobody cares. Nobody. I'm gonna check that out myself. See if I can get in here. There's this guy from the agent, the CIA agent whistleblower guy. So it's in the chat room there. All right, what else do we got here? Apple's new Face ID could be a powerful mass spying tool. Obama's gift to Trump. Monarchic war powers. Equifax sacks 2 executives, turns devious to stop you from demanding a credit freeze. All the workings headed towards Internet 2.0. We're probably at 1.5 right now. Venezuela has officially abandoned the petrodollar. Does this make war with Venezuela more likely? Saudi Arabia cracks down on dissenting clerics amid rumors of crown prince's rise to the throne. They're basically renovating, meaning they're blowing up and killing people in specific towns in eastern Saudi Arabia, among other horrific things that they do. But it's okay. It's okay for them to do whatever they're doing. But Assad's got to go, and all these other people got to go. But Saudi Arabia just sits there, and the regime never changes, internally or externally. Israel's security forces are training American police officers despite history of rights abuses. Joe Biden compares supporters of due process to Nazis who marched in Charlottesville. The FBI paid $100,000 for concocted Trump dossier during election. John McCain helped broker classified deal with Comey. That over at Blacklisted News. Man shouting Allah Akbar attacks two women with a hammer in Frenchtown. Is that what people call France and Paris Frenchtown when they don't know how to say it? Over there in Frenchtown. Where are you going? I'm going to Frenchtown. Oh, you mean France? No, Frenchtown. Berkeley preps for Shapiro with bomb unit. Boarded up ATMs. That's right. I saw some clips about that. Like a lot of the things that Shapiro says, he sticks to his guns. I don't like his obviously his blindness when it comes to his people, which is very saturated, where he believes that everything that they do is justified. What happens when your lungs, brain, kidneys, heart, teeth, and mood when you drink diet soda? You sneeze, apparently. No, there's no diet soda here. Collective evolution. That's one of your faves. Diet soda has come under intense scrutiny over the years, and for good reason. It has been found to leave people at risk for weight gain, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease, among other serious consequences. Running out of time for that, but I'm going to be looking at this story later. I suggest if you want to know more about it, get over there to Blacklisted News. Well, they'll break down what happens to your lungs and your brain and your kidneys and your heart and your teeth and your mood when you drink diet soda. The ATF ran illegal mixed money slush fund for years with zero oversight, auditing, or punishment. Cool. Well, I want to do that. The House tells Sessions Justice Department, it will not stand for civil asset forfeiture. The U.S. House sent a strong message. Wow, they're actually they jumped up one step from being worthless. Sent a strong message to rebuke Sessions on civil asset forfeiture last night. The House adopted 3 amendments offered to an appropriations bill that prohibited the Department of Justice from using funds to increase certain federal and local forfeiture practices. Justin Amash summed up the problem with CAF in one sentence. It is an unconstitutional practice that is used to violate the due process rights of innocent people. Yeah, Sessions, man. I mean, it turns out that a lot of these top lawyers, Jeff Sessions now, and then that fucking sloth that was in there under Obama, they're just assholes. They're just absolute fucking douchebags, breaking all kinds of laws, not prosecuting anybody, not putting any bankers in, not going after the real criminals, the real true criminals, the Justice Department. They should just call it the Injustice Department. That's what they should do it. They should just call it that. Hawaii says it's first state to go cashless for pot sales. At least 10 U.S. mayors accused of child sex crimes and molestations in just the last year. Seattle Mayor Ed Murray has resigned after a 5th victim has come forward and alleged the mayor raped him as a child. It was his cousin. While this is certainly a massive revelation, it's important to note that Ed Murray is not the only name on a long list of mayors accused of child sex-related crimes since 2016. According to a scathing report from the Daily Caller, at least 10 current and former mayors have been accused of unspeakable crimes against children, ranging from child pornography to rape. Some of the victims were as young as 4 years old. We're number 1 in child rape by mayors. You go, America. You go. Super. Mainstream media defends Amazon deleting nearly all negative reviews of Hillary Clinton's her book, What Went Wrong. What happened? What happened? Implanted microchip to replace credit cards and car keys. Oh, dear. At least 15 soldiers injured in explosion at Fort Bragg, officials say. Didn't hear anything about that, did we? I wasn't paying it. Dear Jamie Dimon, predict the crash that takes down your produces nothing parasitic bank, and we'll listen to your Bitcoin prediction. Russia kicks off biggest display of military power since the Cold War. New Zealand National Military Police trained by Chinese spies. Hillary Clinton delivers most idiotic review of Orwell's 1984 ever. Oil-rich Venezuela stops accepting dollars. I'm going back in history from most recent stories to. The middle class is being destroyed. Now only 25% of all Americans have 10,000 or more in savings. Thousands evacuated from Moscow buildings as Russian cities inundated with bomb threats. ADL campus guy describes how to block events about Palestine. Way to go. Former UBS trader arrested, as opposed to arrested. It's an electronic arrest. The e-rest, charged with rigging gold prices. 6 shot at Freeman High School in Spokane area. Suspect in custody. Studies link heavy metals to disorders and declining IQs in children. 2 more Americans affected by mysterious sonic attacks in Cuba. With iPhone's new Face ID, cops can unlock your phone by pointing at your face while you're cuffed. Why are U.S. universities arming themselves with grenade launchers? Accused of war crimes in Yemen, Saudi Arabia sets up a panel and clears itself of wrongdoing. Boy, that's awesome. Like to rob a bank, keep the money, and then set up a panel where I clear myself of all wrongdoing. Wasn't me. What's all that money in that briefcase? Wasn't me. It's not mine. But I'll be carrying it out of here. Study prompts call to examine flu vaccine and miscarriage because of a damning report that came out this week. Running out of time, folks. Stay tuned for Ron. Rock the Boat next. Center for Disease Control and Prevention has reached out to, anyway, you can find that over there. Study prompts call to examine flu vaccine and miscarriage. Nah, I'm saying. Anyway, thanks for tuning in this week.
There is only one holistic system of systems. I will MK Ultra ya. Put the MK scope on ya. If the MK hits you, it's guaranteed to open ya. The 57mm Mark 110. 220 rounds a minute, try to stop them. Don't put that on your wish list, that's retarded babble. Protesters make the hit list soon as they start to rabble. They are nothing but fishes in the barrel. It doesn't have to be Christmas for a carol. Some decorate with ornamental decorum. Some perform shotgun on Hanukkah and Purim. That's where my job come in. I am a blessing to the mercenary. For the corporation selling weapons to them. Any potential competitor step into them. I'm authorized to knock them out and stick a GPS into them. They want to sell uranium to Iran that's enriched. That's a bitch. Now we gotta teach them.